Should you buy the new CYPHER 2 from Microtech? What's going on, guys? Carter here with Edged Mindset. This video is going to be dedicated to the new CYPHER 2 release from Microtech. I put it back in the box just because it's so much fun to open these Microtech boxes. Something about how the top slides off. It's just so much fun, so satisfying. There it is. So, my friends here at PVK, check them out. Super awesome. They were nice enough to send me this guy to check out for the channel, just to do some content on it, give my opinion on it, see if it's something that I think you guys should buy, or rather give you some information to see if it's something that you want to buy. But before we begin, and before I dive into the specifics on this knife, let's talk about what this is, why it is, I don't know if important is the right word, but why you should care about it. The CYPHER has not been in production for quite some time, and it's got a little bit of a cult following. Some people really, really like it. Full transparency, I am not included in that group. The CYPHER has never been one of my favorite Microtech models. It just has never really spoke to me. Out of all the other models, I don't love it. And it's really just a visual thing, right? Because it functions just as good as any other Microtech, same materials. Just kind of comes down to the milling pattern, sizes, things like that. And I just never really liked it, but that doesn't mean you won't. You may love this knife. So that's why we're going to talk about it. So this has been re-released, and it includes all of the latest Gen 3 Microtech features. The most notable being the new internal mechanism. So they switched to a long double spring system with a longer switch channel, which allows a much easier and smoother activation with actually a harder firing mechanism. Something that I didn't really think was possible, because I always assumed that there was a direct relationship between how difficult it was to fire it and how hard it fired. I was proven wrong by these. My engineering certificate has now been revoked because I don't know what I'm talking about. In some of my old videos, I kind of would say that when you complain about how hard it is for Microtechs to fire, it's a dumb complaint, because if you make it easier to fire, it's just not going to fire as hard. They figured out how to do it, and it has to do with the double spring with the longer pull, and they've also polished the internal mechanism so that it has less friction. So what you get is an easier to fire, smoother firing, but harder firing knife, which is really, really impressive. So that's the main thing this has. And then on top of it, there's a whole bevy of things they've changed, especially on this CYPHER 2. I'm not a CYPHER expert, right? Because I've never really been into the model. So some of this take with a grain of salt, but I believe they have shrunk down the size. It retains kind of a lot of the stylings that the old one had. They've upgraded it to the milled titanium pocket clip that is on knives like the Glycon. This is the proof run, so it does not have a silicone carbide ball like the Combat Truodon, the new Combat Truodon does. I assume that the production version will, but I don't know that for certain. We have yet to see the production version of this knife, only this proof run. This particular proof run is a signature series, which most of them have been, except for the new Scarab 2, which is a proof run, but for some reason is not a signature series. The blade steel is M390 MK, which is the latest proprietary blend that Microtech gets from Bowler. Bowler is a manufacturer of M390. Microtech has used M390 a lot over the last few years, so Bowler did kind of a proprietary blend for them and tweaked some of the values to add a few more characteristics to it. For the most part, though, it seems on par with just M390, which is a very solid steel. Let's do some sizes here. Size comparisons and overall size. So 3.5 inch blade, overall length is 8.5 inches. Let's compare it to a Ultratech, because I think lengthwise that's going to be the closest. So if we do handle butt to handle butt, or I guess glass breaker to glass breaker there, the CYPHER beats it by just a little bit. So it is a little bit longer than an Ultratech. Now let's move this down here. Now if we compare it to the Combat Truodon, you can see it is considerably shorter than the Combat Truodon, and also a little bit thinner. So it's kind of in the middle here, right? So overall length and carryability will be similar to the Ultratech. However, it is a little bit wider, so it will fill the hand a little bit better, a little bit easier to use. This particular one has a single edge, so you can put your thumb on the back here. So a good overall carry size. Let's compare thickness. Blade thickness seems to be the exact same, which is pretty common for Microtech. For the most part, their blade thickness stays consistent across models. It's kind of hard to tell because this is a double edge, so kind of gives you an illusion. But if you look at the tang here, you can see it's the same thickness. Handle thickness is the same. So it's kind of just a shorter version of the Combat Trudon with a similar width to it. So very usable, very carryable, very utilitarian. This has the glass breaker that's included in the backspacer here, the titanium backspacer, which is something that we're seeing on the Gen 3s. This is a slightly different variation, different milling pattern, a little bit smaller, but very similar. So you still have a glass breaker, but it's not a big, obnoxious piece that is screwed onto the end like the old generations had. And of course, you can see the bent steel pocket clip compared to the titanium milled one. Let's get a weight on here. It would be nice if I had an old Cypher that I could compare to, but I don't. So 4 ounces compared to an Ultratech, which is quite a bit lower, 3.2 ounces. And then the Combat Trudon at 5 ounces. So really just kind of almost right there in the middle. So in terms of size, I think it was a good play on Microtech's side to create a knife like this, right? This fits a nice niche that we don't have a ton of. So it's bigger than like the regular Trudon, which is a smaller version of this, but it's not as big as the Combat Trudon. Same length as this, but wider, so easier to use, fills up your pocket a little bit more, gives you a slightly better grip. Like I mentioned before, that single edge is just there for cutability. You can really put your thumb on here, bear down, cut through some material, you get the extra support of your thumb. You don't have to worry about cutting yourself trying to do that on this. You've got a higher bevel so that you've got some more slicing going on. Nice thick tip so you can do some detail work. Don't have to worry about breaking that tip off, but it's still small enough that you could do some detail cutting with it. The action on this thing is just superb. And of course, you also have the screwless construction. You can see there is no body screws except for the big one holding in the pocket clip. I have a takedown video of the Hera 2. I'm assuming this goes together the exact same way. Remove both sides of these screws here. Then you slide this top cover forward just a little bit, like a millimeter, and then it just comes right off. So pretty cool. It gives you a nice clean look without having any of those screws kind of coming out there. When we come to pricing, I don't know what the retail price on the regular edition is. So this is the proof run. It went for like $540, I believe. The proof run of the Hera 2 was about $100 more than the regular production version. So that would lead me to think that this is probably about $450 for the production edition. We'll have to see. But if that's the case, that is a pretty decent price point, I think. It's below the traditional Microtech OTF pricing, which we also saw on the Combat Trudon here with the latest edition. This one was priced about $90 less than the previous production version of this knife. So definitely very, very cool. And it seems like we're headed in that same direction with this one as well. So that's it, guys. Overview of the new CYPHER 2 from Microtech. Let me know what you think of this particular offering. Does this kind of speak to you? Is this something you might want to get or nah? All right, guys. Catch you later.